When rain falls, it's part of a cycle that's essential to all life on Earth. Every phase of this cycle plays a role in keeping the planet beautiful and vibrant. Water makes its way back into the atmosphere via many different routes. Through rivers, from the leaves of plants, and even through the human body. And what keeps all these processes turning are wetlands. There are many types of wetland. Inland wetlands, coastal wetlands, and human-made wetlands. Wetlands are extremely important for humans. They are hugely diverse ecosystems, providing natural riches like food, timber, and medicines. Nearly 3 billion people are dependent on groundwater for drinking. And agriculture relies on wetland freshwater for irrigation. Wetlands are nature's way of purifying water. They also play a hugely important role in the regulation of climate change by storing carbon. Coral reefs, mangroves, tidal flats and other coastal wetlands provide a buffer between the land and the sea, preventing flooding and erosion. Despite all of these benefits, wetlands are often thought to be of low value, and half of the world's wetlands have already been destroyed. The consequences of further destruction are flooding, drought, disease and pollution, and climate change. And ultimately mass starvation and unprecedented species loss. But there is hope. The Ramsar Convention protects wetlands by helping people work together to manage these most precious of resources. Work is focused on wise use of water, building a network of wetlands of international importance, and international cooperation. From local projects to global policymaking, Ramsar aims to get the world acting as one before it's too late. We all depend on water. Each of us can make a difference. We all have a responsibility in protecting wetlands.
Promintilia from the Department of Chemical Engineering. I'm a professor here at the Salle University. The wastewater that are generated from the households are actually being discharged to the water bodies that contain these nutrients. These nutrients pollute the water bodies, and we found out that there is a potential for recovering these phosphate-based resources and convert it to fertilizer. While looking at the potential of nutrient recovery, hopefully we can develop a business model wherein the water utilities could provide services to increase the sanitation coverage here in our city. At the same time, look for other revenues in terms of recovering the phosphates. And hopefully, this will also help the farmers because we could lower down the price of this fertilizer. The special about Newton is definitely you have a chance to work with higher level type of research from UK universities. Having this kind of project, having this kind of funding that's being provided by Newton Fund would help me, and as well would help other researchers to really dream big. Of course, we should start small and then act locally and hopefully make an impact and make a difference in this world.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the third session of the three-part series of Learning and Circular Economy, Observance of Earth 2021, to celebrate uh, welcome Okay, so good afternoon again. Can you hear me now? Okay, so apologies for that. It was fine a while ago. Well, that happens. So again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the third session of the three-part series of learning events on circular economy in observance of Earth Day 2021 celebration with the theme Restore Our Earth. As you know, Earth Day was observed last April 22, so that was last month, but this is a three-part event, so it overflowed up to May. So the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands joins the many scientists, non-governmental organizations, business and governments worldwide that are now looking at the natural systems, processes, and emerging green technologies to restore the world's ecosystems and forests, conserve and rebuild soils, improve farming practices, restore wildlife populations, and rid the world's oceans of plastics. This is also in line with the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, which starts this year. To contribute to this conversation, SCPW is conducting a three-part learning event that revolves around the circular economy approach to wetland restoration. Circular economy is a model of production and consumption that involves sharing, leasing, reusing, repairing, refurbishing, and recycling existing materials and products as long as possible. Sessions, uh, the sessions include the basics of circular economy and nature-based solutions and provide concrete examples from successful and practical initiatives focusing on constructed wetlands, plastic waste management, and sewage management. At this point, let me thank our partners that made this event possible. We have the NexCities project, or the Water Energy Nutrient Nexus in the Cities of the Future project, Lima Water Corporation, and the Philippine Water Partnership. After the learning session, we are also inviting everyone to the announcement and awarding of our video making contest that was launched in February 2021 in celebration of World Wetlands Day. The video making contest, dubbed as Stories About Wetlands and Water, is made possible by the support of Philippine Water Partnership and Fusion Works. Now, today's session focuses on circular nutrient economy, particularly sewage management, and how it contributes to wetland restoration. Metro Manila has about 24 million in total population, and only 11% is directly or indirectly connected to a sewerage system, and 85% are served by over 2 million poorly maintained septic tanks. Human waste accounts for nearly 75% of pollution of water resources. Most of the nutrient pollutants present in domestic sewage in Metro Manila reach natural water bodies and result in ecological and economic losses. The format for today's learning event will be pretty straightforward. We have a main speaker who will discuss the session topic, which is on circular nutrient economy, and three panelists who will contribute to the discussion, after which we will have a short open forum. To kick off the discussion, may I introduce our main resource speaker. Our main resource speaker is the head of the Center for Environmental Health and Engineering and Director of Research Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the University of Surrey in Guildford, United Kingdom. His expertise is on water and wastewater treatment, water reuse, protection of aquatic environment, and various aspects of water, food, energy, and environment nexus. He is the principal investigator for the 2019 Newton Prize Project awardee, NexCities project. And it's my pleasure to present to you, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about circular nutrient economy. Please welcome Dr. Devendra Saroj.
Dr. Devendra, there's no audio. There's a settings on the right, and then you can choose your audio input. Could you just try to come back in, Dr. Devendra? Maybe it would work if you came back in. Miss Amy, can you take over?
Okay, so Dr. Devendra just is having trouble with his audio. So we will now see.
You always put that box so that you can see.
Okay. We will just wait a little while because Dr. Devendra is having problems with his audio. So he tried to exit first, and then he will come back so that we can have him on board. Yeah, maybe we can play first. Can you play the teaser on the Struvite? I think interesting.
Explain, please.
Ano nga ba ang Struvite?
Siguro energy drink or special.
Siguro model ng bike ata.
Struvite ba yun? Mineral ba yun? Or some kind of stone or something?
Struvite is a phosphate mineral with formula. Ano yun?
This is the first time I'm hearing this word.
So ito ang sample ng Struvite. Ang Struvite ay isang uri ng pataba sa mga halaman na sagana sa phosphorus, nitrogen, at magnesium. Maaaring makuha ang phosphorus at nitrogen sa sat stage o dumi ng tao, ngunit hindi ito kaagad magagamit. Ang sat stage o dumi ng tao ay pinoproseso muna sa pamamagitan ng paghalo ng mga kemikal tulad ng hydrochloric acid, sodium hydroxide, magnesium, at ammonium chloride para mabuo ang Struvite na pwedeng gamitin ng mga magsasaka bilang pataba ng
Ang Struvite struvite ay isang pataba na nagtataglay ng malaking component ng phosphorus. Mayroon din itong relative amount ng nitrogen. Ito ay pwedeng gawing pataba para sa pagsasaka.
Isa sa mga benepisyo nito ay mababawasan ang pagmimina sa ating mga bundok para makakuha ng phosphorus. Hindi lang natin makarecover ang nutrients galing sa dumi, kundi masasalba din natin ang ating kalikasan.
Yeah, so that was the short teaser about students. So we try to ask people what it meant, and we got really funny responses. So we are still not seeing the main speaker here. So maybe we can call on Dr. Mark. Maybe you can explain something about the students in the meantime. Sorry to put you in the spot. So I think there's still a problem with the audio.
Okay.
Try to read the messages.
Okay, so yeah, I hope everything is clear now. Can you hear me? Can somebody feedback here whether you can hear me? All right. While waiting for Dr. Devendra, can we ask Dr. Pomentilla to give us just a short background about how they were able to get the Newton Prize project?
Hello,
Kwento na lang siguro tayo.
Hello,
Yeah, we
hello,
can hear
is
you.
the audio good? Okay, so
Yes.
about the Newton Prize project, in fact, it started sometime around 2018. This is in fact a small grant from UK and PCRDOST, wherein we were asked to develop a proposal where in the area of the water, energy, food nexus. No? So in this case, we submitted a proposal, and fortunately, we were given the grant, no, a small grant. It's about 3 million for 2 years to explore this kind of project wherein we focus on the nutrient recovery from the domestic wastewater. And in this case, we work with Maynilad to consider this approach. And that started everything, and that's why we compete with the Newton Prize by submitting our entries. Our entries, in fact, this NexCities project. So that's how this Newton Prize project started, actually. Di ko alam kung do you want me to to explain yung technical background and so on, but yeah, so yun ganun po yung nagsimula siya, no? So it started with the idea. It started when I met Devendra in a workshop held in Manila, no? He was invited in this workshop organized by the Salle University, and then we explored what can we do, no, in a way that we can collaborate. And in this case, we shared this interest on nutrient recycling. And during at that time, in fact, I believe that we have problem on the nutrient removal, no? In our case from the domestic wastewater. In fact, we have now still regulation considering to to monitor these nutrients when we discharge this wastewater. Before kasi we focus on BOD, no, on these carbonaceous BOD, no? And now we are also focusing on the on the nutrient pollution. So rather than focusing on the removal of nutrient from the wastewater, what if we can recover that? This kind of project has been explored in other parts of the world, no, in UK, in the US and other countries. So, and this time, why not we can try to consider, no, its potential for the setting, for the Philippine setting. So yun po, doon po nagsimula po yung yung project po. Of course, marami po mga challenges, especially na inabot po tayo ng pandemic, no? Ang daming mga challenges kami ngayon. But hopefully, no, in spite of these challenges, we can still push forward, no, yung vision on how we envision the future cities, particularly when we try to recover resources from wastewater. Yun po yung doon po nag-start po yun, Miss Abby. I hope I was able to to explain po.
Yeah, so at least meron tayong backgrounder about the Newton Price project, which is actually the main feature that will be discussed in this session today. We also have with us si Miss Hazel. Maybe Miss Hazel, would you just like to give a backgrounder on Lima Water as to what you do?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. You hear me, Miss Amy?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so basically, ma'am, Lima Water, no, our company is under the youngest Aboitiz business unit, which is Aboitiz Infra Capital. So the mission of AIC is to uplift and spur growth through better and integrated infrastructure. So in line with the AIC's mission, LWC provides end-to-end water and wastewater services in Lima Estate. So this is a 700-hectare PESA registered industrial estate situated in Lipa, Malvar, Batangas.
Yeah, so thank you for that. At least we have an idea kung ano yung sino yung mga kasama natin dito ngayon. And maybe we can also ask Dr. Rico. Dr. Rico, can you tell us about what CIRCA is?
Okay. Okay, a very pleasant afternoon, everybody. I am Rico Angkog. I work actually I teach at the School of Environmental Science and Management of UPLB. I'm an associate professor there in environmental science and environmental economics. But at the same time, I also work as an operations consultant for CIRCA in its new department, Emerging Innovation for Growth Department, or EIGD. Essentially, in this new program, this is jointly pursued by CIRCA and UPLB. We're really interested in what we call as EIG, or Emerging Innovation Initiatives. So essentially, we're doing research projects, but we know that the need for these results of research projects are today or even yesterday. So you want to find ways, innovative ways, how to cut it short to make sure that the benefit will directly redound to the farmers. So, Ma'am Amy, essentially that's our very abstract of what we actually do.
Thank you for that, Dr. Rico. That gave us an idea. Kasi bago lang yung yung ginagawa ni Dr. Rico sa CIRCA di ba? Okay, so at this point, I think Dr. Devendra is back on board. So may we call on Dr. Devendra so he can start his presentation. I hope his audio would now be okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. All right.
Let me share this screen. Shall I start now? Okay, thank you. Let me start now. So, sorry about the trouble again. I think we are back on track. I will give my presentation on recovery of nutrients from wastewater. circular economy approach to agriculture. Just to let you know that I'm based at University of Surrey, which is just south of London in the UK. And we have 3 faculties, and Faculty of Engineering is the largest one where I am based. And within that faculty, the center is part of Civil and Environmental Engineering department. In ongoing research, we have a number of projects going on, and they cover broad areas spanning from sustainable cities of the future to different aspects of environmental engineering. One of the key topics of my research is creating incentives for the protection of aquatic environment from urban sewage and waste pollution, of course, including human excreta, and in particular focusing on resources recovery from waste materials, including human waste. There were a number of projects that we delivered, including one within the UK. It was funded by Thames Water Limited in the UK, focusing on first European full-scale commercial trial of recovering nutrients from sewage, municipal sewage. But after that, I did collaborate with a number of people in the Philippines, particularly colleagues at Salle University, and we completed one project, and our Newton Pride project is ongoing. And this topic of resources recovery between UK and Philippines, I think myself at University of Surrey and Professor Michael Promentia at University de Salle University, we are progressing from last couple of years from this topic. I will start with this interesting terminology. You might have seen this. It may sound funny, but it's very interesting for our background in this topic. So in late 19th century, when actually modern toilets were invented, this was seen as a good invention at that time. And it was a way to basically sanitize your home. It was not meant for what happens after that. And that is why in many parts of the world, we are still basically having different scenarios. So you could divide scenarios in very simple 2 parts. One of the scenarios is that our toilets are connected to sewerage system. Other one is scenario when it's not. It could be different types of situation, of course. In for example, on-site facilities, you may have very basic toilet to a very good quality toilets with on-site facilities. But all of them, if they are not connected to sewerage, the fate of human excreta is, and the way it is handled could be very different. So we are looking into scenarios of different cities and towns across the world. And in most of the developing countries, if you see that that large population is not connected to sewerage system. Whether it's connected to sewerage system or whether it's not connected to sewerage system, human excreta will always have certain constituents in them. So science and technology is progressing in looking into those constituents present in human excreta and how to make best use of the processing of wastewater in such a way that you get maximum resources out of it. So this diagram basically shows, scientifically speaking, theoretically speaking, what we can get out of human excreta. So looking into elements, we are talking about carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus mainly. And obviously, if you categorize in terms of various particles and particulate matters, you can divide in different forms. But after all, these are 3 elements: carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Dealing with carbon has been easy, and in the sense that there is a lot of work done in that area, and particularly looking into, for example, recovering them in the form of methane through an anaerobic process. UASB technology has done a good job in many developing countries. In some cases, it's not worth because in those geographic areas, they don't find the value of energy in that small amount of methane worth investment of infrastructure. But whatever is the case, removing carbon is seen as the first and basic step, for which there seems to be little technological barrier. What is the problem is nitrogen and phosphorus, because it's not easy to remove them, and sometimes you don't want to remove them because they're very useful elements. Nitrogen, phosphorus form basically part of fertilizer, and if wastewater is sent to agriculture or human excreta directly into agriculture, it has shown positive effect, same as any fertilizer which contains nitrogen and phosphorus. We can keep cleaning the wastewater and create drinking water out of it, obviously, if that is what is required and affordable. I'm going to focus mainly on N and P, in let's say more particularly on P, because these nutrients are very important for incentivizing why wastewater needs to be cleaned. Let's look at the phosphorus, because nitrogen is something in the atmosphere. 78% of air is nitrogen, and there is different mechanism to deal with that. Looking into phosphorus, this is a solid material, comes from the rock mines, and those mines are not located everywhere in the world. Some countries, some geographic areas are fortunate to have those rocks where you have phosphate. And this phosphate basically travels all the way to our farms and in the form of fertilizer, and that is the backbone of our intensive agriculture, without which the large population will not able to get food. So the problem with this type of system that we have, which supports intensive agriculture, is that we need phosphorus, because without phosphorus, which is vital micronutrients for plants, we will not be able to sustain intensive agriculture. Phosphorus needs are different. Maybe in some flowering and fruit vegetables, it's required more than some crops, but it all depends on which crop and which type of plants we are looking at. But one thing is clear, that all of them need supplementation of phosphorus if we want to grow them intensively. In terms of timeline, this all happened after Second World War, when world population started growing a lot, and intensive agriculture was seen as solution to providing food for all in the whole world. Even if that is a struggle, at least majority population of the world is getting food because of intensive agriculture, which is supported by the phosphate-based fertilizers. So we are looking into the 21st century, and we don't see any chances for decline of phosphorus consumption, because with growing population, we will continue to require food. The circular economy approach comes here in terms of offering disruptive approach to basically looking into changing the journey of phosphorus. The normal pathway of phosphorus is basically from rock phosphate coming into fertilizer production plants, and then into farms, producing food for humans, but also for animals. It's the same thing. And then excreta, whether human or animal excreta, basically goes to environment, because in some form it leaches into aquatic environment. And that is a problem, because this is one-way mechanism. You are mining the phosphate and eventually throwing into the clean environment, which creates a lot of environmental degradation and disturbs the ecosystem. And the productivity of the ecosystem is going down continuously because of this mechanism. Now, if we look into circular approach, if we can create a shortcut that all the excreta goes back into agriculture, then we create this local circular approach, which in turn will reduce the global requirement of the phosphate rock mining. Sounds very good, sounds simple, but it's not as simple as it sounds, because putting excreta back into agriculture has always lots of technological and practical challenges. As you can imagine, throwing excreta into agriculture in large quantities not necessarily is going to be removing the requirement of modern chemical fertilizer. What can remove or replace the requirement for modern chemical fertilizers is basically some sort of equivalent to that. And something equivalent to that that can be created from human excreta, for example, or even from animal excreta, but it requires technological intervention. Very simple ones, For example, we can use the precipitation process to convert nitrogen and phosphorus present in human excreta, for example, ammonium and phosphate. And if we provide magnesium into it, it forms estruite, which is magnesium ammonium phosphate. It's very simple technology, well known, well established, and has been tested in many places in small scales. And in the UK, what we did a couple of years back was testing it at commercial scale in a large wastewater treatment plant, so modern wastewater treatment plants, not at the scale of septage and toilets. So basically, what we can think of if we apply these type of approaches into influencing global phosphorus cycle, what it can do is to change its overall quantitative inputs. So let's say if we have got approximately in the range of 15 megatons of years of mined phosphate rock, which goes into fertilizer production and then into soils, agriculture soils. We have a lot of losses in this supply chain. So losses at the level of fertilizer production and application on soil, they are being addressed by scientists. And some countries, particularly Scandinavian countries, for example, Sweden, have addressed to perfection that losses at the level of farm or before that are quite well minimized. What we have not done so far in most places is basically to minimize the losses that happen because wastewater is eventually ending up bringing phosphorus into the environment, causing also environmental degradation. The only way to overcome that is we recover in the form that is accepted in the farming practices. And if we do phosphorus recovery or recycle back into agriculture, we will have massive influence on global phosphorus cycle. So in the UK, when we were involved in this project, which was installed by Thames Water Limited, and University of Surrey had one doctorate research supervised by me, looking into all the aspects of phosphorus recovery and quantitative balances and technological changes into wastewater treatment plants. We came to conclusion that if we apply these in all the treatment plants in the UK, we can reduce the phosphorus fertilizer imported to the UK by 40%. Okay, and not only that, we have a lots of benefits in terms of protecting our water bodies, including, for example, wetlands and rivers, against eutrophication. It's type of degradation which disturbs the ecosystem and the productivity of the aquatic ecosystem. So we did assign some number through some sort of assumptions that it can reduce that eutrophication by more than 20%, but the benefit of this type of approach could be long-lasting. So together with the Salle University, when Professor Mike Promentia was working on this project a couple of years ago, based on which we got Newton Prize, the calculation was done to show that if we do similar kind of intervention in Manila, Metro Manila, we can create income generation opportunities through phosphate fertilizer production. And obviously, then there will be less imports of fertilizer to sustain the food production. It's very difficult to quantify, as you can imagine. In Manila, we have lack of data, and we need to establish this. But it's a very clear indication through life cycle assessment that there will be multiple benefits if we can recycle phosphorus from human excreta back into farming practices. So I'm particularly now going to look into developing countries issues, because developed countries have very different issues, and they are mostly to do with infrastructure development, dealing with protection of water quality. What is very specific to 2/3 of the world is that we have to look into how to make use of novel approaches for long-term sustainable growth in rural as well as urban areas, and how to address the circular economy approach to agriculture, and what will be the business model. These are all the open questions, and unfortunately there is no clear one solution at this stage. But if we introduce these type of approaches in which you capture nutrients from human excreta and in future perhaps from animal excreta as well, we enable sanitation, we enable wastewater management, and that leads to resource recovery and perhaps water use if we treat water up to the high standard, and sustainable food production through the same nexus, because nutrients basically are very important resources, and if we don't let them go into the aquatic environment, we will protect our water resources and we will have safe and clean water. So with this vision, basically what we are still progressing beyond our first project. Now we have got Newton Prize project to basically demonstrate this, and demonstration is happening through the same vision, which means we have to understand the nexus, which is driven by the nutrients for better water quality, even energy saving, because it will influence the whole wastewater management approach through nutrient cycle for food security and long-term social and environmental improvements. So this project, which is going on at this moment in the Philippines, is obviously very different than what we did in the UK a couple of years ago. In this case, we are not doing it at large wastewater treatment plant, but we are doing at quality scale, which means taking the septage from the toilets and from the septic tanks and processing it using the processing reactor to convert the ammonium and phosphate into estruate, which will be used as a slow release fertilizer, because fundamentally it's slow release fertilizer. And this type of studies are ongoing, in which perhaps we will have data on to how this type of fertilizer, estruate based slow release fertilizer, basically compares with any other options. We'll still have to look into how it goes. What we are hoping that we will look into different type of business models that we can talk to and communicate with many stakeholders, and more stakeholders will learn from it, or give feedback to it, to be honest. And hope we will see more number of case studies like this, which focus on fertilizer application which is derived from human excreta, potentially even animal excreta in future. In terms of where we can apply, which crops we can apply to, it's again a matter of basically discussion and development. There are many crops which may benefit more than others. For example, beetroots, potato-based, and those type of vegetables, they might require, they might benefit more from this, because this fertilizer has got magnesium into it. But equally, any crops, vegetables, plants which do require nutrients will be benefited as much as any other nitrogen and phosphate based fertilizer. With this, I will close my discussion so that we can chat more, and I'll be happy to take any questions or comments.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Devendra, for that very interesting and very engaging presentation. At this point, before I call Dr. Promentilla, I would just like to tell everyone that we have a little game that we're playing today. We will be flashing a question, and the first three who will answer it on the FB chat box or in the YouTube chat box will get 100 pesos worth of load. Okay. So the first question is, give one of the countries considered as phosphate giants. All right. So you can now answer that. While I introduce Dr. Promentilla, who is also a principal investigator from DLSU, De La Salle University in Taft, and leads the Philippine team of the NexCities project. May I call on Dr. Mike to give your insight, your little speed talk about the project?
start now? Okay. So thanks for the introduction, Miss Ami. Again, I will be reiterating what Dr. Saroj has explained about the circular nutrient economy. And I think our NexCities project envisioned and demonstrated the potential of phosphorus recycling in the form of struvite from domestic wastewater here in the Philippines. Though the peer recovery potential from human excreta would only be around 20% of actually the global anthropogenic flow, the interaction among disciplines could map out the potential resource recovery routes that may pave an important pathway towards circular nutrient economy in the agri-food system. Our way forward as a research group is to engage more stakeholders and expand the boundary of our system while considering other resource recovery options from these bio-based ways. Of course, progress towards sustainability and resilience in post-COVID era must consider the critical nexus resources such as food, energy, water, and land within the planetary boundaries. Planetary boundaries are the safe operating space where humanity can continue to thrive. Our B scenario operating in agri-food system is putting pressure on our planetary boundaries through emissions of around a quarter of all greenhouse gas emissions, using 70% of freshwater resources while utilizing 40% of the Earth's land surface. Food production is the primary driver behind the excessive global use of nitrogen and phosphorus through the use of fertilizers, and which may end up in water bodies causing nutrient pollution, also known as eutrophication. On one hand, phosphorus scarcity, water, and food security in a looming climate crisis could pose an existential risk against the backdrop of feeding 10 billion people by the middle of 21st century. Thus, we will continue working on this line of research as we think that bioeconomy, particularly circular bioeconomy, is an emerging strategic pathway to encourage nutrient recycling from bio-waste such as agri-waste, food waste, and now we are looking at as well domestic wastewater while improving environmental protection. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share our research.
So thank you, Dr. Mike. I think we really have exciting things happening for the NexCities project ahead of us. We have another, now before we proceed, we have another question that that you guys might want to answer. We already have winners actually for the first one. So this one is, what is driving the increase in the use of phosphate fertilizer? Okay, so the first three correct answers will again receive the same prize. All right. So to further enhance our learnings today, we have three panelists who will share additional information, experiences, learnings, or insights on circular economy, particularly focusing on sewage management and circular nutrient economy. So our three panelists are Ms. Hazel Manalo, AVP and General Manager of Lima Water Corporation, Dr. Rico Ancog, Operations Consultant of CIRCA and also an Associate Professor at the UPLB SESAM, Ms. Norma K. Villanueva, former President of the Philippine Horticultural Society and owner of Luntiang Sining Landscapes and Creative Art. Each of our panelists is given 10 minutes to deliver a speed talk. So now let's start with Ms. Hazel. Ms. Hazel, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. So before I begin my discussion, allow me to thank the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands for inviting Lima Water to be part of today's discussion, specifically on circular nutrient economy. So it is our privilege to be part of this session together with our speakers, Dr. Devendra Saroj and Dr. Mike Promentilla, and co-panelists, Dr. Rico and Cog and Ms. Norma Villanueva. Next slide, please. So circular economy is based on the concept that there's no such thing as waste. So as we do business and even in our daily lives, the idea of circular economy should be taken into consideration to ultimately achieve the balance between the natural ecosystems and our economic or daily activities and waste management. Its main objective is to optimize resource yields by circulating products, components, and materials in use at the highest utility at all times. So this could be both technical and biological cycles. So technical cycle, which usually involves restoration, recovery, reuse, and even recycling, and biological cycle from consumption, digestion to composting. So before going to the detailed discussion on how we envision circular economy in Lima Water, next slide please. Allow me to give you a quick overview of our company and what we do. So Lima Water, as mentioned earlier, is under the youngest BU of Aboitiz Group, and that's Aboitiz Infra Capital. So in line with AIC's mission, LWC provides end-to-end water and wastewater services in Lima Estate. So aside from Lima Water, we also have Lima Land handling the day-to-day operations of Lima Estate, and of course, Lima Enerzone providing the power or energy requirement in the industrial park. So next slide, please. So the full end-to-end service means that aside from the water requirement of the locators, for their processes and workforce, we also treat the discharge of all locators through our centralized sewage treatment plant. So locators with industrial usage are required to lower down their discharge quality level to domestic. So all discharge of locators are connected to the sewer line going to the centralized STP. Next slide, please. So the STP is actually designed to treat domestic wastewater discharge to Class C effluent standards of the DENR and LLDA. So during the treatment process, we produce biosolids as byproduct of the biological process. Biosolids consist primarily of dead microbes, other organic contents, and can be used as organic fertilizer or soil conditioner. Next slide, please. So currently, LWC biosolids generation is only about 100 to 200 tons dry solids per year. And we have partnered with a DENR accredited hauler for its treatment and disposal to the nearby sanitary landfill. However, in the next 5 years, our projection is that the water demand and consequently the biosolids generation will double. So considering that biosolids is rich in organic content and nutrients, part of our innovation plan is to look for a more sustainable disposal method that will ultimately harness the value of it as fertilizer or soil conditioner. So while most treat biosolids as waste, there are several potential sectors that will benefit from its energy and nutrient content. Next slide, please. So internationally, biosolids reuse has been into practice for the past 20 to 30 years, many of which were triggered in response to the increasing biosolids generation and diminishing disposal options. So hence, Lima Water's innovation plan includes for 4 other potential sectors or for potential applications. So aside from landfill, which I discussed earlier, biosolids can also be used for mining reclamation and soil remediation. However, site rehabilitation is only required after the life of the mine has expired, and therefore there is no constant demand that will match the continuous production of biosolids from the STP. So the third potential application is energy, wherein the organic content of the sludge is converted to biogas through anaerobic digestion. There are several factors, though, affecting the viability of this option, and one major reason is the economies of scale. Sludge to energy facilities are typically capex intensive, hence to make it viable, a considerably or high solids or power generation of about 5 TDS or tons dry solids per day is required to make it economically sound, plus the consistency of the feed to the reactor for biogas production. The fourth option for the application is nurturing denuded forest areas. So processed biosolids are a good source actually of lining materials to restore the soil productivity and nutrient capacity. However, access issues to these forest areas could be a limitation or could hinder the effective application of biosolids. Finally, we're looking at what biosolids can do for the agriculture sector. So there's an increasing demand for organically produced product in the Philippines. So similarly, increasing the potential for organic fertilizers such as biosolids. Admittedly, the initiatives in place to educate and encourage farmers to increase organic fertilizer production will take time and years of small scale pilot trials to demonstrate to the farmers that biosolids are acceptable product to use. So this significantly reduces the potential available market and has to be taken into consideration to prevent overestimating capacity. Fortunately, while we were exploring this option, we came across the NexCities projects of Dr. Devendra and Dr. Promentilla, and we are excited to see how we can potentially collaborate to explore this option and be able to reach out to the farmers for the application of biosolids as fertilizer. So indeed, the Philippines has the opportunity to capitalize on the experience of other wastewater authorities and to build a robust program to meet the unique challenge it faces with regard to sludge management and disposal. So a consistent theme worldwide pertaining to the biosolids management has been that programs that are managed well are more likely to gain support from the general public, from the government agencies, and the food supply companies. So it is vital of importance to focus on the implementation of systems that protect the environment and human health and are sustainable in the long term. So thank you very much and happy Earth Day, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Hazel, for sharing Lima Water's efforts in managing water and sewage. Now we move on to the perspective of the academe and also from the point of view of a regional body on agricultural research. May I call on Dr. Rico Ancog? Dr. Rico, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma'am Amy. there are 2 points that I'd like to actually discuss from the presentation that we had. Thank you very much, Dr. Devendra and Dr. Mike, for this very interesting topic. First, really is on the technology part. We're happy to really take note that you are championing the use of biological waste as a solution to recover valuable fertilizer components. That's the first. And then second, you actually raised a very important aspect related to business models. And in here, I would like to highlight how such business models from the perspective of the farmers would then be crucial, so that at least in this case, there's an added value as to why we need to invest on these important technological innovations. So going back to the first one, again, what is really good is you are now highlighting a very important paradigm shift in the way we do environmental management in the Philippines. There is a waste, and waste are now seen as important resource, and you are now providing an important technological solution, wherein in there you are showing a clear concept and a process how such biological waste is now being recovered and then recover fertilizer components. What is also very important lesson that I've learned is that you are telling us a narrative that such technological innovation is also done under the context of circular economy. So nature-based solutions and then circular economy put into a particular interventions, and therefore you provided a strong story that therefore highlights a conservation effort that also affords developmental gains, that therefore provides more compelling story on the kind of work that we should do. Though I would really look forward to the future wherein there is an upscaling of such a particular technology, and therefore the implementation of these technologies in a particular community, in a system that is operational and implemented by a particular entity. But the future is indeed very rich on that aspect, and we can really imagine the next work that you're going to do on this respect. But the demand for this kind of work is really there. So all the best on that aspect. Second is really more on the incentives. And you raised an important question about business models. Now, we understand that the way we look at pollution is really coming from a strong command and control process. It's really more on regulatory aspect. Now, perhaps another look at controlling pollution, regulating pollution from that business angle may be a good way of further encouraging our government agencies to also invest on this kind of innovations to further enhance or supplement command and control initiatives. On the other hand, when you think about farmers on this aspect, of course, I would really look forward to the opportunity in the future that much of these technologies will eventually benefit the farmers. We understand the high dependence of farmers on chemical inputs. And of course, with this particular technology that you want to put in place, we look forward that a more efficient processing that is highly accessible by the farmers themselves would then be set up in the future, perhaps. Now, however, that particular forward-looking business models would then require massive or concerted efforts with regards to awareness. You are actually leading a paradigm shift in terms of waste utilization, but utilizing this for another complementary purposes would require awareness, massive awareness efforts, so that there is a sustained demand aspect on this particular resource, especially so that this is good also for the environment. Perhaps we need to really discuss more about this, especially that this is not just for the benefit of conserving our wetland, our bodies of water, but also there's really this positive contribution to our farmers. But I can't help but wonder more discussions for our farmers to become even more open-minded on these technological innovations. And of course, we understand that in the current programming of the Philippine agricultural system, to say the very least, we're looking for a more competitive, sustainable, and technology-based agri-sector. And perhaps on the impact management side, this is one specific technology. But farmers need to champion this as well, and that would really start with openness and awareness from their end. Another point on that aspect is really about financing. We understand, of course, that this one might be capital intensive to begin with, or at the beginning. So therefore, government support and the private sector might be a good starting point to further scale these technologies and have these replicated at an appropriate scale that could then eventually make these accessible to farmers. So some learnings as to how wastewater treatment plants are being implemented by several municipalities or cities in the country. Such experience would be an indication as to how this one would proceed. There are innovations already on the financing aspect for this, and therefore that is a good starting point how we can innovate to make sure that this compelling story will tell another story that surely is successful. Now, last point, when we think about farmers, any innovation such as this is surely crucial. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that this one would really contribute to job creation, resource use efficiency, environmental impact reduction or mitigation, and eventually you have, of course, better sanitation. So these surely are good points, and we want to make sure that this kind of dimensions in your work is clearly highlighted in the kind of business models that you would like to actually put in place. So congratulations in your kind of work, and we really look forward to a successful implementation of scaling this out. Hopefully the technology is there, but the dimension and setting the incentives and making it really work on the ground, and hopefully we can help you do an impact assessment on both environmental conservation side as well as on its impact to our dear farmers. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rico, for those very valuable insights, particularly on the incentives aspects. And for sure, we will have more conversations, bringing in, of course, the farmers' views and also discussions on the business models so that we can bring this technology and the product to the farmers at a very good, at a cost that is reasonable. Okay, so we will now call on our third panelist, Ms. Norma Villanueva from a potential group of end users. Ms. Norma, you have the floor.
How does a gardener feel about using slow-release pellet fertilizer produced from sewage output for use in agriculture? Hi, have a great day, everyone. I am Norma K. Villanueva. I am a Lola Plantita, a grandma gardener, a hobbyist, plant lover, and a landscape artist. In saving this planet Earth, I believe in all the principles that have been laid out and all the learnings that I have gathered from all the speakers before me. I believe that using a fertilizer that has been produced using a process that cleans the environment is a much needed input in farming. At the same time, the fertilizer that is produced is organic and does not contribute to pollution. This is an ideal process and one that should predominate the agriculture world. It is a mindset that each gardener like me must have. I am not fond of using fertilizers in my plants. I restrain myself because even though I do not personally use the fertilizers myself, because I have people who do these jobs for me, I am cautious about the harmful effects the use of chemical fertilizers may cause on one's health. I refrain from using chemical fertilizers as much as possible, though at times what science has brought into the world cannot be avoided, especially if there are plants that need special nutrients that chemical products alone seem to provide cost effectively and more efficiently. I am very comfortable though in using slow release fertilizers. Many organic slow release fertilizers have become available in the agriculture market. I use Osmocote and NutriCoat. Osmocote is not organic but chemically based, but I felt at ease using this as I needed to put them in my plants only once every 3 months. Lately, I have been using NutriCoat, which is cheaper, but I also use locally produced pellet slow release fertilizers that are organic. Using slow release fertilizers is convenient, and that is the only fertilizer I use. My cousin-in-law, Kuya Mon, an agriculturist based in Brunei, for more than 30 years, says that slow-release fertilizers are often used. They have different formulations for use for 30 days, 60 days. Some come in granules, and there are even more expensive sticks. I am also learning from experience that growing plants using organic fertilizers can be even more costly. I have a friend, Miss Evelyn Gadi in Nueva Ecija, who manages a 40-hectare farm. She allots just a few hectares in growing rice using organic fertilizer, as she tries how to use organic fertilizer to grow rice commercially. She did try it out for a few years, but it seems the farmers have been so used to using the traditionally taught and widely implemented methods by the different government agencies handling agriculture that she gave up on transforming from chemical fertilizers to organic fertilizers. Ms. Evelyn Gadi once was offered use of a slow-release urea fertilizer. She tried it and she was really gratified with the result. However, the supplier had quit producing such. As a farmer, she feels that this slow-release fertilizer that is generated and produced through sewage output is a welcome technology. She is confident that her co-farmers will use such as long as the cost is low. Cost in agriculture production is a very crucial factor for a farmer. I have a landscape client who is concerned about their impact on the environment. The couple has installed a system in their house that treats their sewage and wastewater to a much higher standard than that of the traditional septic tank. It consists of a 5-chamber treatment tank, followed by a treatment bed, using plants to further improve the quality of the effluent or liquid waste before discharging to the city drainage. The discharge is also safe enough to be used for garden watering. I hope this mentality is acquired by all Filipinos. The wife is a Filipina and the husband is British. It does cost a bit more money than a septic tank as is, and it requires concern or love of the environment to undertake such a project. Transforming the sewage water into fertilizer is an ideal setup. Perhaps they could and would update their setup once an updated technology is available at the household level. It could be added to the sanitation code, which dates from the Marcos times. The technology is already established and available and simple to construct, albeit costing a bit more. The technical name, I think, is anaerobic baffled reactor, ABR, with a reed bed or constructed wetland. I understand that the SCPW, or the Society for Conservation of Philippine Wetlands, have existing projects in constructed wetland system. These are so-called green filters. They're low cost, no skilled labor required, no electricity nor chemical input is needed. Thus, they are economically and environmentally sustainable. The technology is already being used for larger scale treatment systems in the Philippines. In the case of my landscape client, it is possibly the first application at household level. A government initiative could perhaps move builders such that they become responsible for wastewater cleanup in coordination with homeowners. This UK and Philippine study that solves the problem of eliminating water pollution and transforming this waste into a vital component in growing food is very commendable. It is a very laudable project that deserves priority. One question comes to mind. How would farmers react to using fertilizers that were produced from wastewater? I am reacting very positively because I believe that it is a necessary step to help save the environment. But I'm not sure how the government sector or the farmers themselves would react to such a fertilizer that will be used in food production. Is there a reaction or a suggestion from the government as regards this research? Will this be backed up by legislation such that farmers will receive funding if such were undertaken? These are the questions that linger in my mind. Thank you so much to Ms. Amy, Lecciones, and San Aaron for inviting me to be a part of this live SCPW broadcast and this opportunity to share my thoughts on how a gardener like me feels about the use of wastewater in producing slow-release fertilizer for use in agriculture.
So thank you, Miss Norma. It's a pleasure to see you once again. And those are very useful inputs and insights that we can include in the future, in future conversations about circular economy, particularly the concerns, of course, of end users. Now, we will now proceed to a short open forum. But I think we will be calling in all the panelists. You will also be. Can you also please post your questions on the chat boxes of the FB and the YouTube channel so that we will be able to see your questions. Kindly also indicate who's asking the question and to whom you would like it directed, whom you are directing the question to. Okay, so this is the first question. How do we plan forward when there is circular economy framework and policy based on an ADB report dated February 2020? How do we plan forward? What was that? How do we plan forward? Can you flash it again? How do we plan forward? When there is no, okay. When there is no circular economy framework and policy based on an ADB report dated February 2020. Who would like to take the question? Maybe we will direct it to Dr. Rico. Dr. Mike. Okay.
I can go first because I'm actually invited by DTI last time for the sustainable consumption production. In fact, circular economy is part of this SDG 12, the sustainable consumption production, and there is an ongoing framework actually. Yeah, there's an ongoing framework being discussed at the government level according to the DTI. So let's see. But maybe Rico and other panelists may have some ideas as well.
Yeah, I would like to really add that the Philippines, even if there's no clear emphasis on the usage of circular economy, but the Philippine government already has the policies that are really supportive of circular economy concepts. But that can also be further supported by a more analysis perhaps on integrating all of these already in place initiatives so that we can really call this one and would really qualify as circular economy. So we'll start with where we are in terms of the policy framework that is currently in place. Innovations for sure and enhancement are in order. We have to also identify who's going to champion this, both in terms of personalities and the organizations. But there are surely organizations that we can tap. But third, discussions such as this is crucial. We may approach this topic to topic, ecosystems to ecosystems, and then eventually an integration of all of these efforts. Amy, back to you, po.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Rico. I think those are very clear steps that we can take. Those are very good suggestions as to how to proceed. The next, can we look at the next question, please? Okay. This is from Pat Labitoria. If we can recover phosphorus from sewage, why does mining for it still happen? Is mining cheaper?
You want me to reply?
Yeah, please, Devendra. I think you know this one.
Okay. Yeah, so we can recover phosphorus from sewage, but it is quite new approach. Traditionally, the old technologies or old approaches to recover phosphorus from sewage were not competitive enough. So it's like you have one truck of sewage versus one sack of chemical fertilizer. Obviously, you would prefer the one sack. Dry chemical fertilizer, you can store it, you can keep it, you know how much to apply. If you have one truck of sewage and nobody wants to go near that, you don't know where to stare, what to do with it. So it is the concentration of the nutrient that is in chemical fertilizer very, very concentrated in a dry form, and that is why it has commercial value. With now what we are trying to do is to convert that one truck of sewage into a small bag of fertilizer, and then only this can happen. And that is why it has not been happening so far. It's a long journey before the recovered fertilizer is seen as good as chemical fertilizer, because this industry is still developing. So yes, mining part is cheaper and beautiful and looks nicer, and that's why it's working still. One day we hope it will reduce.
Can I add as well? Just to give a perspective on this one, because when we try to put a cost for a commodity, in fact, we don't put externalities. And in this case, maybe Rico will agree with me that if we put the externalities, for example, the environmental damage caused by extracting or mining this phosphate rocks, maybe it will be more expensive in the future. And in this case, you have to look as well at the amount, the quantity of this. You have to remember we imported this phosphorus-based fertilizer, and we expect that because of this, controlled by a number of countries only, then there will be like a security issue maybe later in the future. And in this case, we don't know whether it become cheaper. And in this case, I think we have to consider that as well in the future.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mike. Can we go on to the next question? Okay. Would there be complications in regulating nutrient effluent from runoff in countries like the Philippines?
It's already complicated, I think. Mike, you can tell it.
Actually, Hazel will be the better person to reply on this, because we have now the most recent regulation to regulate nutrient, right, Hazel? And this is actually some of the challenges that I heard from the water utilities. So perhaps maybe from the sector, maybe they could provide some more clear picture, I think. What do you think, Hazel?
Yes, sir. Basically, in order to comply with the new requirements, including nutrients as basic parameters for monitoring, there's a need to do massive upgrade of the system of the existing SCPs. But of course, we do understand that the intent of of this additional parameters being included in terms of monitoring. Ultimately, what we want is that to protect the water resources that we have, because later on, of course, there's could be our source of water for drinking. So definitely, we do understand this policies from the government.
All right, so I think we will move on to the
And
next.
you have to remember that.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
You have to remember that because we are already encountering problems with the point sources, as you can see. What more for this runoff where is non-point sources? You can imagine how complicated it is, especially for the Philippines. So that's why I would like first to hear Hazel's point of view, because this is really problematic.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Mike. Okay, let's look at the next question. What would encourage gardeners to join the circular economy model in use of fertilizers, since they number many and can have a big impact in cities? For Miss Norma.
I guess I am already encouraged, and knowing that this fertilizer will be coming from the process of using sewage output will be even more gratifying for me, because I am helping save the earth, right? I am helping in using fertilizer that has been processed through a very nice process of saving our environment.
Yes, that's good to know. Yeah, so we really have a lot of work to do to convince a lot of farmers to have your mindset, Miss Norma. Okay,
gardeners always use the slow release, so it's really no problem. And if it's going to be cost efficient, cheaper, then it will be even more in demand.
Okay. Okay, can we flash the next question? How does the research ensure public health safety from using products out of wastes? Very good question. Who would like to take that? Dr. Mike or Dr. Devendra?
Devendra,
I can start. I can start, Mike. Okay. Yep.
All right.
So I'll mention very specific aspect. Basically, when we are talking about public safety, it is very much to do with pathogens present in waste, particularly human waste. In the processings, for example, for recovering the slow release fertilizer from sewage, the process itself is quite intensive in terms of its pH. So it uses very high pH and very low pH, which kills any pathogens anyways. So, but it's still we have to check and confirm, and in all the research that we do, we can very easily confirm whether there are any pathogens present in the output. For example, in this case, they cannot survive. Any bacteria and viruses will die during the process anyway. So similarly, for any type of research, we do those things, and we have indicators to say that now it's safe to use. Is it okay, Mike? You can add anything?
Yeah, I'm good with that. Actually, as a chemical engineer, when you look at product, if you would like to sell it, of course, safety of the product will be one of the consideration, and that's why we do some characterization and analysis to make sure that the quality of the product is safe for consumption. And in this case, as a fertilizer, it will supposed to be satisfy the specification for a safe product.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. So we move on to the next question. We have time for just a couple more. Are there negative effects when using fertilizers recovered from sewage? There might also be heavy metals in the sewage. Dr. Mike, you're nodding your head, so I guess you take the question.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good question. This is the typical question that you will encounter when you use waste, for example, from domestic wastewater. So that's the reason why when we started the experiment, we always do this, what you call wastewater characterization. We have to find out first the amount of heavy metals in the wastewater. Fortunately, this is good news. For domestic wastewater, of course, we don't expect to have this heavy metals that will be above the threshold level that will be harmful to the environment or to human health. So that is one of the good news. Of course, we have to check that as well. And there are technologies that we are considering. If this kind of heavy metals are involved, then we have to modify the process in such a way we reduce the concentration of heavy metals. And maybe Dr. Saroj Devendra could expound this further.
Yeah, I will add just one technical point to it. Maybe Ms. Hazel can verify that. The problem with heavy metals is mostly in the large centralized treatment plants, because that's where you have road runoff coming as well, which brings heavy metals. So if you're looking into septage, which comes from septic tanks and toilets, actually you don't have much heavy metals there. It's quite good to recover at a septage treatment plants without worrying about heavy metals. But yes, if you have the large wastewater treatment plants, which also takes runoff from roads and everywhere, you have some heavy metals more there, and therefore you have to do some pre-treatment to make sure that your product is free from heavy metals. But this is not a big problem. It is technically handled, and it is possible to meet that challenge.
Yeah. Maybe just to add on that, that's right, Dr. Devendra. There's a possibility for heavy metal intrusion for operating centralized STP. That's why in Lima we do have what we call wastewater policy. So we are regulating the quality of the discharge of our locators to ensure that they will lower down the quality of their discharge to the domestic level. So meaning if they do have industrial usage in their treatment in their processes, they are required to have their own wastewater pretreatment plant.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hazel, for that. So we will look at our last question. By the way, there are still some questions, but in the interest of time, we will just be replying to them through email. That we will be directing your questions to the resource persons later, and they can reply to that by email. So this is our last question. What are examples of incentives for households or farm owners that can be used for circular economy? Dr. Rico, would you like to take a shot at that?
Incentives here would mean in different ways. Okay. Currently, the best kind of incentive system that I can think of is related to our discussion is LLDA's environmental users fee system. Well, that is done at the industry or entity level. So therefore, there are financial incentives that are in place in there that are designed to hopefully then influence the way industries would make a decision. Now, at the household level, though, we don't have, at the very least, one prime example will be on the solid waste management. There are specific incentive systems that are implemented by innovative local government units that hopefully will then target the households. But more analysis on its effectivity is necessary. But what I'm saying is that that's a good case to look into. That's on the financial aspect. Second, we're really banking on sustainable consumption patterns. We want to make sure that people and households who are doing good for the environment are really recognized by such kind of an effort. So a massive promotion for that sustainable practice needs to be promoted, and therefore in our social media, in our public discussions, we have to therefore promote those individuals who are doing good, or households who are doing good for the environment. In one way or the other, they should be our celebrities as well. But I don't see that that is the case now. But if we can provide such an incentive, that surely would be a good way of promoting. Last point, Ma'am Amy. However, the other way of, there's a reciprocal to it also. I think we can also invest on an incentive system that will further highlight those households or those individuals who are not doing good for the environment, who are, producing those wastes. So that's another way of approaching the matter. That's also an incentive system, but in a not so good way. You're approaching it in a negative way. But that, but since environment problems are complicated, we need to also be very innovative on various ways to make sure that we get the message across. Back to you, Ma'am Amy.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Rico. I think Ms. Norma would like to add to that. Yes?
Yes,
As
and as a gardener, you know, there is an incentive for like people in Quezon City in Quezon City area. If you like build a house and build a roof garden, there's some kind of tax incentive. So perhaps if a household will innovate and set up this sewage, new sewage output control, then there can be a tax deduction or something. In line with this, it's also something like when you file for a tax payment for a property that has a lot of trees, then you have to pay more. Why doesn't the government allow people to plant more trees and give them lower taxes instead of making them pay more taxes, isn't it? That's one of the things that some lawyers are studying on, how to lower the taxes when you really do plant a lot more in your lot.
Okay, that's very interesting. All right, so that was our last question because we are already on overtime, but we had a very interesting discussion, and I'm sure we will. There will be more conversation about this topic later on in the future, and we would like to see all of you. We would like to thank all of you at this point, and Dr. Devendra, Dr. Mike, Ms. Norma, Ms. Hazel, and Dr. Rico. This has been a very fruitful discussion. We hope that you will be with us in our journey through communicating these important messages so that we not only conserve or restore wetlands, the environment, but we also help our farmers in the process. So thank you very much. Thank you. We will now call the open forum closed. Thank you. Okay, I think we are ready for our third question. From the backstage, are you going to flash the question? Okay, so we will need also 3 winners for this. The first 3 people with the correct answer will win the 100 peso loan. Give one effect of unmanaged solid waste dumped in water bodies. Give one effect of unmanaged solid waste dumped in water bodies. Okay, so you may now answer the question. And we would like to invite everybody not to leave yet. We will just have a very short break. We will have a 5-minute break so that we can prepare for the announcement and awarding of the winners of our video making contest. This was a contest that was launched on the occasion of World Wetlands Day in February, And this is for high school students. And we have 8 finalists who will be recognized today. And it's going to be a very short ceremony, so we would love to have you with us. So stand by. We will resume in 5 minutes.
Explain, please.
Ano nga ba ang struvite?
Single energy drink or special
Siguro model ng bike ata.
Struvite ba yun? Mineral ba yan? There's some kind of stone or something.
Struvite is a phosphate mineral with formula. Ano yun?
This is the first time I'm hearing this word.
So ito ang sample ng struvite. Ang struvite ay isang uri ng pataba sa mga halaman na sagana sa phosphorus, nitrogen, at magnesium. Maaaring makuha ang phosphorus at nitrogen sa sat stage o dumi ng tao, ngunit hindi ito kaagad magagamit. Ang sat stage o dumi ng tao ay pinoproseso muna sa pamamagitan ng paghalo ng mga chemical tulad ng hydrochloric acid, sodium hydroxide, magnesium, at ammonium chloride para mabuo ang struvite na pwedeng gamitin ng mga magsasaka bilang pataba ng
Ang struvite ay isang pataba na nagtataglay ng malaking component ng phosphorus. Mayroon din itong relative amount ng nitrogen. Ito ay pwedeng gawing pataba para sa pagsasaka.
Isa sa mga benepisyo nito ay mababawasan ang pagmimina sa ating mga bundok para makakuha ng phosphorus. Hindi lang natin makarecover ang nutrients galing sa dumi, kundi masasalba din natin ang ating kalikasan.
When rain falls, it's part of a cycle that's essential to all life on Earth. Every phase of this cycle plays a role in keeping the planet beautiful and vibrant. Water makes its way back into the atmosphere via many different routes. Through rivers, from the leaves of plants, and even through the human body. And what keeps all these processes turning are wetlands.
Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you are still here. Thank you for those who stayed. We will now proceed to the second part of today's program. As we announced earlier, we will be announcing and awarding the finalists and winners of the SCPW video making contest with the theme Stories About Wetlands and Water. Can we play the competition video now? May we call on the second runner-up? The second runner-up is Alexandra Mail Rivero. The title of her video is Heart-Shaped Lake from Ligao National High School in Ligao, Albay. So the second runner-up is Alexandra Mail Rivero for her work titled The Heart-Shaped Lake from Ligao National High School, Ligao, Albay. Can you please play the winning video now. There was a technical problem on the audio of that particular video. We will try to fix it first. Okay, so we will now
Most of us are unfamiliar with the term wetland. Wetlands are area of land where water covers the soil. Wetlands from wave action reduces the impact of floods, absorb pollutant, and improve the quality of water. They also provide habitats for both plants and animals. They contain a wide diversity of life, supporting species that are found nowhere else. Hi, I'm Alexa, and I'm gonna tell you about the heart-shaped lake here in Danau, Pulangi, Albay. Tabios is the smallest fish in the world. It is only found in the Philippines, particularly in the Bicol region. It was discovered that this fish can also be found here in Danau Lake. It is also home to tilapia, mudfish, carps, and other species aside from being surrounded by vegetables and palay farms. The smallest fish in the world provides livelihood to communities in nearby areas. Livelihoods from fishing, rice farming, tourism, and water provision all depend here. Wetlands are important for us humans to survive and flourish.
May mga policy ang PAMB na dapat susundin na yun din ipapatupad dito sa Danau Lake. As well as coordinated one yan ng barangay council and ng LGU Pulang. Yung mga nandito rin na mga residents ng ng Danau Lake ay pinag-disseminate din ang information na kailangan sila mismo ay mangalaga. Sila mismo ang mag-preserve kasi sila yung nandito di ba? Sila yung nandito kaya kailangan sila mismo ng mga tao dito, yung mga residents dito sa Danau, sila mismo ang unang-una na magsisituit na ang Danau Lake ay maging ligtas at ma-preserve.
Humans should live in harmony with nature. In fact, it is important for us to make these conservation efforts because our survival is dependent on the biodiversity that surrounds us. The best way to help is to remain educated and raise awareness because the more we learn about our wetlands and how to protect them, the more we protect ourselves and the future of our planet. This is Alexa Rivera and that is the wonderful Danau Lake.
So that was a very interesting video all the way from Bicol. So now we are pleased to announce the first runner-up. The first runner-up is from Holy Rosary Catholic School in Lucena City. For her work on change starts within ourselves. The winner is the first runner-up is Gabrielle Micaela Fabon. So we will view the video.
Swamps, mangroves, rivers, rice fields, and even coral reefs. Wetlands go by these names which can be found all over the world no matter what the climatic zone. Wetlands are not just essential to animals, but also to humans. Not only do wetland habitats sustain a wide range of animal and plant life, but they are also vital for human survival. They shield their shores from wave action, absorb pollutants, mitigate the damage of floods, and improve water quality. They provide shelter for animals and plants. Wetlands aren't just what you see, they are more than what they look. When it comes to human survival, wetlands play a great role in fixing our environmental problems. Among these problems are flood damages and water quality problems. Wetlands are a solution to these problems. They help in mitigating the impacts of natural disasters such as floods and provide drought tolerance. Wetlands act as natural sponges, absorbing rainfalls, reducing flood and droughts. Wetlands reduces the speed and height of the storm surges, hurricanes, and tsunamis. We just need to understand how they work and the ways on how we can help. Wetlands can store water which provides a buffer against drought. During dry seasons in arid regions, wetlands provide refuges for wildlife and supply water for communities and stock. Wetlands naturally protect surrounding areas from flooding as they absorb a significant amount of water and temporarily store it. We can encourage this natural process by fortifying wetlands with human-made constructions that enclose the wetlands, which allows more water to be trapped during flooding season and then released or used for irrigation during droughts. As I have said, the ability of wetlands to provide benefits is contingent on how we manage them. They are vital to humans, but humans also lead in destroying them simply because they do not know its value. They should be sustained and their ecological structure should be restored. Here's what you can do. You may begin by donating to an organization that works to protect wetlands. A more simple way? Do conscious habits such as not using pesticides, conserving water, recycling, and many more. However, The simplest way to contribute is to remain informed and spread knowledge. Now that you know its value, start making a change. Because the moment you start protecting them is the moment you start protecting you.
Okay, so that was the message from that video that was created by Gabrielle Micaela Fabon. Change starts within ourselves. So now we are ready to announce the champion, the grand winner of the SCPW video making contest goes to Jedrick Romero for his work in Tubig o Tubig from Canosa College, San Pablo City. May we now view
dito sa lungsod ng San Pablo. Kami ay may 7 lawa. Sampalok, Yambok, Bunot, Pandin, Kalibato, Mohikap, at Palakpakin. Ngunit hindi mo aakalain na ang lungsod ng 7 lawa ay siya ring bayang uhaw na uhaw sa tubig.
Lungsod ng San Pablo sa Laguna isinailalim sa state of calamity dahil sa krisis sa tubig.
You could imagine kung ano ang hirap ng bawat tao. We have to stay up late, no, para makapag-ipon lang ng tubig na gagamitin para sa kinaumagahan.
Halos 2 week kami wala. Nag-ligid kami dun sa water district na napunta-punta dito.
Bakit nga ba nawawala ng tubig?
The people using the services of our San Pablo Water District has overrun the capacity of our natural springs.
We experience water crisis because our spring sources, which provide us with 80% of our supply, suddenly, for more than a year, the yield was less than 54.
Talagang kailangan na magtipid tayo sa paggamit ng tubig. Dumako naman tayo sa 7 lawa ng San Pablo.
The 7 lakes in one city, in itself, a very unique feature. This lake suffered sort of this degradation.
The lake, or Sampaloc Lake more specifically, talagang it was neglected. At dying lake talaga. It was surrounded by informal dwellers, restaurants, overcrowding of fish cages.
Nagkaroon ng actions para yung dumadaming mga fish cages sa mga lakes na ito ay mabawasan. Dinimolish, inalis yung mga commercial establishments.
It's a long process. And it took us 20 years to finally get to the point where pinaka-last step was to relocate the fish cages. Ecosystem yan, di ba? It's a cycle, and once we disturb that cycle by cutting trees, na-apektahan yung biodiversity. And that's why we're working on our best to try to rehabilitate yung mga lakes natin to bring back the flora and fauna that was there before.
Sa biyaya ng 7 lawa at krisis sa tubig, ano nga ba ang dapat nating gawin?
We have to conserve water.
Prioritize water above all things.
Dapat isipin natin na habang tayo ay nag-aaksaya sa tubig, merong mga ibang bahay na maaring magkulang naman sa tubig.
Let us give Mother Nature the chance to heal itself.
Pamamahala ng basura, pag-aayos ng mga pangisdahan. Dapat talaga na ingatan ang lawa.
So whether it's lakes, rivers, wetlands,
it's important that we keep them clean.
Alagaan natin ang ating paligiran. Panatiliin nating malinis ito.
Ang pagmamahal natin sa ating inang kalikasan, pagmamahal natin sa ating kinabukasan.
Be environmental warriors.
To make waves of change, we need ripples of action. And that ripple starts with you.
Okay, so may we request the 3 winners to please join the live stream here by being on the live platform itself. I think a link has been sent to you. Can you join so that we can see you here on the platform itself? Before I announce the other 2 special awards. Okay, so as we announced earlier, we have a People's Choice Award, and this is the video that garnered the most likes. And the People's Award with more than 1,700 likes also goes to Jedrick Romero for his work in Tubig o Tubig. So, can you play the card. And finally, our partner and sponsor, the Philippine Water Partnership, which is our major partner in this competition, along with, of course, Fusion Works, has sponsored a special citation for one entry. The citation is given to Jose Antonio Rañada for his special story about valuing water and is thus cited as Kwentong Tubig Award. So may we look at his video entry?
Water is abundant. It comprises 3/4 of the Earth's surface area. Pero maliit lang na porsyento ng tubig ang maaaring mapakinabangan ng tao bilang inumin, gamit sa agrikultura at industriya. Kapag nasa patag tayong lugar na may regular na supply ng tubig, naiisip natin na ang tubig ay naandyan lang. Kaya minsan binabaliwala natin ito at nasasayang lang. Pero sa mga mataas na lugar gaya ng Bakong, pahirapan ng tubig. Ang kanilang supply ng tubig ay kinukuha pa nila mula sa mga water refilling stations mula sa mas mababang lugar.
Talagang kanipisigal kang tubig ide, lalo pag mga April sa May na, talagang siguro basa na tayo sir, tapos agad tayo kami sa Alyang. Magarigos, kung pag-inuman ng tubig, intiro na nga amin, sa Alyang talaga kami nag-iwan parura.
May mga proyekto na rin ng patubig mula sa Barangay Malama. Ngunit dahil sa habang 13 kilometers, ay nahihirapan mag-maintain nito ang barangay.
Ongoing sa water system na magpramalyang, may reservoir kami yan.
Opo, nakita na po.
Nakita po siguro sa reservoir na mga yan. Functional siya, kailang sa maintenance medyo, dahil sa karayuan, nahirapan kami sa maintenance. Minsan nagaputok sa tubo, dahil sa pressure ng tubig. Kung minsan nababara, kung minsan yung mga western na suminsan, nag-suinagyan ng tubo, lulubuton. Ang po pinakamayor ng problema naman.
May nagalubot po.
May nagalubot.
Sisi po ka nagalubot?
Yan sa parte pa. So kaninagyan niya, Paulba, Francia, Malama, puro kaninagyan. So kadakal na sa halos Malama lang kadakal na
lubot. Naguko masira ang
naguko sila. Kasi ito na sana so nagagiso tubo eh. Lulubot, gukungukay, pabaya na lang. So wasted na kanto, di na nakaabot din sa tubig.
Kaya nagalayo sa presyo. So, ibig sabihin, dapat magsintari mga senrang niya.
Kaya yung senra, kaya lang hanggang sentro lang, pag-abuti rin sa itas.
Kading
na sa magpunit ito sa may taytoy, petasiday.
Para sa mga gaya natin na may ready access sa malinis na tubig, hindi masyadong mataas ang ating pagpapahalaga sa tubig. Pero sana'y magsilbing aral sa atin ang hirap ng mga taga-barangay Bakong upang mas lalo nating pahalagahan ang tubig at hindi ito aksayahin.
Okay, so that was the Kwentong Tubig Award from the Philippine Water Partnership. So we are also pleased to announce that the other 5 finalists will also receive a token cash award in recognition of their efforts and creativity in producing the video materials. So we will be contacting you on how we will be able to transfer your cash awards for all the 8 finalists. So at this point, can we first bring in some of the winners who are already here at the backstage? So we have Jedrick. Hi, Jedrick. Congratulations. We also have Alexandra. Alexandra, can you turn on your video or? Okay. I think we have a notification here that Miss Fabon is having a hard time with her internet. So I think Jose is that Jose, are you from the one from Albay? Yeah, his name is Jose Antonio Rañada. Can you turn on your video so we can have a photo ops? Are you able to turn on your video, Jose? Okay, Aaron, can you bring in Architect Celes so we can be here all together? Oh, there he is. Okay. All right. So I don't, Jose, you cannot turn on your video? Okay. So he is the Kwentong Tubig awardee actually. So we will be taking a photo for documentation so you can smile your sweetest and biggest smile on the count of 3. All right? Kaloy, are you ready? Jose, you really cannot turn on your video? Okay, so on the count of 3, you can? Ano daw? Hindi kaya? Oh, okay. We will just superimpose your photo there when we produce this. All right, so smile your best. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. So congratulations. And we are very happy with the outputs. And we hope that you will continue on communicating the importance of conserving wetlands. All right. So can we now have the oh, there she is. Can we have the congratulatory card before we call on Architect Celes for the closing? So that was very quick. All right. So congratulations again to the winners. And we hope that you will continue your advocacy for wetland conservation. And today and now to close the session, and not just the session, but the three episodes of our learning event, may I call on the President of the Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands, Architect Celes Ulit.
Thank you, Ami. The Society for the Conservation of Philippine Wetlands would like to thank all of you for making this learning event possible. May I just take a break from my prepared speech and would like to express my gratification to our speakers of the 3 sessions and analysts of the 3 sessions. As not exactly a non-technical person, but if I were a non-technical person, I would say that I really learned a lot from all of you. And I'm very grateful in a Zoom mode because the 3 sessions, it was like a interaction between you and me. And I did learn a lot from you. And may I say also that because of that, this interaction, it was, the topics were really very technical, but as a person, perhaps to non-technical persons, it's like you telling me a story in a very non-technical way. Learn a lot from you. Thank you very much, our panelists and our guest speakers. So, on to my prepared speech. One of the environmental problems identified in major wetlands in our country like Laguna de Bay, Manila Bay, Pasig River, and all the other wetlands that we have is the deterioration of water quality due to pollution, particularly from the discharge of human and domestic wastes. In this session today, we learned how circular nutrient economy can help in restoring our wetlands by enabling our sanitation and wastewater management through resource recovery, water reuse, and sustainable production by facilitating protection resources and by ensuring safe and clean water in the long run. The 2019 Newton Prize Award-winning project that was presented to us by our main speaker, Dr. Devendra Saroj, emphasized that this is done by recovering fertilizer from domestic sewage collected from septic tanks that are not connected to sewer lines. Our panelists from Lima Water Corporation, the SERCA or Southeast Asian Resource Center for Graduate Study and Research in Agriculture, and the Philippine Horticultural Society have shared with us their views and initiatives regarding the circular economy approach to agriculture and how it is beneficial to our community and to the environment. It is essential that we promote these kinds of technologies and approaches to help restore our earth to the benefit of our farmers and other sectors of the economy. Again, thank you to our resource persons, panelists, our partners, and everyone who joined us in this final session of our circular economy. Indeed, the 3 sessions were very, very fruitful. Thank you. This 3-part learning event has imparted to us knowledge on the basics of circular economy and nature-based solutions, and provided us with concrete examples from successful and practical initiatives focusing on constructed wetlands, plastic waste management, and sewage management. Before we formally close our session, I would also like to congratulate all the high school participants to the video making contest. Everyone has seen the outputs of our participants, particularly the finalists, and they were, personally, I didn't think that they were work of students but of professionals. Very good. In the videos, we have seen the creativity of the youth and their important role in promoting the wise use of wetlands. Congratulations to you. Good work. Indeed, reaching out and engaging the youth in this kind of environmental conservation activities may not only lead to direct impact on their change of behavior towards the planet, but may also create conservation influences towards their family, peers, and community. Keep up the good work. In this regard, I formally close today's session. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.